Hello and welcome, guys. Thank you for joining me once again for another edition of Facebook Live. I am having some technical difficulties tonight, so I will try to keep this video as short and sweet as I can, and hopefully we won't lose connection and we're able to complete the taping tonight. So I don't know if some of you are experiencing difficulties as well, but what we're able to record, hopefully you can catch up on YouTube and or SoundCloud. I appreciate you joining me tonight. I have my special guest with me tonight, Mr. Emir Jackson. So he's in visiting for the Mother's Day weekend and holiday, and it is indeed a pleasure to have my loved ones come in for a visit. Tonight, by special request, I have been asked to address issues as they relate to racism. So I know that when you hear a word like racism, all kinds of images and perceptions come to mind. And that's natural because racism comes in so many forms. And so we get a broad perspective of what that is or what it looks like. However, I must say this, racism exists. Now, to what degree it exists, that's not for me or you or anyone else to decide. That is for each individual who has their perceptions of what's superior, what's not, their issues relating to hate, their issues related to race, different cultures and religions. There are so many scales of racism that it would be hard to put racism in a box and to keep a specific type of label on it. Now, tonight I'm just going to speak from my perspective because I don't do a lot of study on racism. I don't concern myself with a lot of the racial issues and politics that are involved in a lot of things that go on throughout our country. So I think it only fair that to address the concern of my audience when it comes to addressing racism, but also just give you my perspective. Have I ever experienced racism? Yes, I have. Good evening to you too, Miss Anitra. Thanks for joining me. Have I ever experienced racism? Yes, I have. I have experienced racism. I've experienced it as a young black woman, as a young black professional woman working on a particular job, or even to secure a job. So I have experienced that, and in my nursing career, I experienced it more than I have in my career as an educator. So many of you, if you know my earlier years, I started my professional career off as a nurse. And so I worked in several jobs in different states, and through securing those jobs, you meet a lot of different cultures. And oftentimes what I found is that when working these type of jobs, regardless of what the seniority level was, if there was a cut, a job cut, or positions that they were shutting down, or if they were downsizing, usually I would be one of the first ones to go, even when there were less qualified people that were under me and maybe was hired after I was. So I have experienced issues in that sense. And we know that when people are in position of authority and of power, they can choose who they want. So that's their own personal opinion, their own personal preference. So at that point, you have to make a decision. Do you hate or do you criticize a whole race of people over the decision or the preference of one? So I used to have that mentality to where I wanted to blame. I wanted to blame the man. I wanted to blame and call it racism. You know, it is what it is. But now as I stand today, I told you guys before, I feel as though whatever happened in the past and whatever doors closed in my face, whatever opportunities that I was denied throughout my career, I feel as though now that I look at it, it was all orchestrated by God, because it all worked together to get me to the place to where I feel like I have found my purpose. I didn't find fulfillment within the nursing. I didn't find fulfillment, total fulfillment, being boxed in a classroom. I found my fulfillment being able to educate on this platform. So to sit and harvest bitterness and anger and hatred and want to feel like because you have a particular religion or skin or a orientation or a preference that I'm against you because of that, or you're against somebody because of that, those are racial issues. But that doesn't say that because I feel that way, that everybody that looks like me is that way. All that is to say is that each individual, regardless of what they think, how they think, I feel like they have a right to do and feel as they please. Now, that doesn't say that they're right or wrong. That's not for me to judge. All I can say is whatever your preference is, whatever you feel like is superior, wherever you choose to do business, whatever friends you choose to have, whoever you choose to hire, that is your preference, that is your right. Because I can tell you, as sure as I sit here in front of you, whatever my preference is, when I'm in a place of authority and whatever decisions I make, then I stand on just that. Now, whatever basis that is based on, whether it's color, socioeconomics, religion, whatever, then whatever motive I have behind that, that is what I would have to deal with on a personal note. Now, what I feel in my personal life, I do not drag it to my public platforms. I do not drag it to my place of business. Those are my personal opinions, and I don't make decisions based upon it. Because I feel like there are good in all. Whether they're white, whether they're black, whether they're religious, not religious, whether they're rich, whether they're poor, whatever. I believe that there's good in all people. Now, on the flip side of that, taking those same characteristics, there are some bad. And there are some that I don't agree with. And there are some that I would never do business with. Now, that is not to say that that has anything to do with those, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're rich, poor, religious, not religious. It's not based on that. Because I judge a man for what he or she presents themselves to me. And it's not for me to judge them for feeling the way that they feel and acting the way that they act. It's not for me to judge. So this is the approach I take when I meet people. This is the approach I take when I'm interacting with people. I respect all people and their opinion. Now, if they look at me and make a judgment, why am I going to get all upset about people feeling the way that they feel in their perceptions? Because I tell you what, people show you who they are when they open their mouth. But on the flip side of that, you show them who you are when you respond. So that is something to think about. Racism goes two ways. It's a two-way street. And the only way you stop it is it stops with you. Because we can't change people. We can't change them. They can't change us. They can't change the way we think. Right? And we have rights. We know our rights. We don't need validation for anybody. So, to think about racism, we're quick to judge and quick to say it's racist, it's racist, it's racist. But racist doesn't always come in a form of violence. Everything doesn't come in a form of violence. Some people, with these violent actions, they're just showing you who they are. And I think it's beyond racism. It's just the nature of who they are. It's just a mentality of what they possess. And however else they believe, whatever labels they use, don't you have thoughts and feelings too? And to be judged by a thought or a feeling that you have, to be labeled. But what sets us apart is what actions are following that. And so some people are just mean, ruthless people. And you can call them racist. You can call them what you want to call them. But they are who they are. And to give attention to it, you're feeding just what they want you to feed on. To worship them. To highlight them. To give them the platform for an act that they acted out in hatred or whatever reason that they did. But for it to go back and forth and to bicker between us and try to piece it apart, I think it's not necessary. I think it's not necessary. Racist, yes, if they're racist, so be it. I think that whatever we feel, we should all respect one another. That's just my opinion, period. Now, how do I deal with racism when it comes to my door? Now, when racism or issues knock at my door, or when I'm faced with it, or I have to make a decision, I can tell you this. I don't allow your personal issues to interfere with what I do when I'm serving you. If I make a choice to serve you, I give you 100%. I don't care what you look like. I don't care how much money you have in the bank. I don't care what your religious beliefs are. I don't care what your sexual preference is. When I serve people, I'm serving that person. I don't allow those personal issues to get in the way. Now, when it comes to where I spend my money, that I have a choice on too. So I don't go to places where I feel like people are working there and they're nasty and they're not clean. And their teeth rotting out their mouth and trying to fix my food. And I know they ain't washing their hands and they outside puffing on cigarettes and whatever else. I'm not spending my money there. I'm not wasting my time there. I'm not eating food there. That's my preference. Now, is that racism? Are you going to label me? Are you going to judge me? I don't spend my money in places where I feel like the people that are providing the customer service have bad attitudes. I just don't do it. I don't work on jobs or try to get into places or go into places to where I feel like I'm not welcome or I'm unappreciated or put down or minimized. I don't hold conversations with people that try to minimize my worth. That is just something that I just do not do. Now, you call it racism? I don't know. I don't know what your perception of racism is. But all I know is that I know who I am, and I know my worth, and I don't need anybody on God's green earth to dictate that for me. So therefore, I make decisions according to the interactions that I'm faced with. And I don't judge an entire culture or entire race or an entire population based on my experience with just one or two persons. It's an each individual concept. So racism does exist. It exists from, if you know your history a little bit, from the foundation of which the United States was founded on. There were 12 rich white men who came together to form the Constitution and establish the laws in which we still live on some of those today. And so their perceptions, their mindsets, how they viewed society and what it looked like and who should be the heads and in charge and what authority looks like and what leadership looks like, those are all written in our Constitution. Those 12 men come together and made those decisions and elected who was going to be president and all that, and we still live under that same Constitution that was written all those hundreds of years ago. So wherever the issues are, that's one of the first places we need to look, because it is the foundation in the country in which we live on. We live on this land, we live in this land. So nothing changed but time. And if you want issues with racism to change, it starts with you. We can't look at the people that are coming up with all these hate actions and all that and want to sit and judge and point fingers and all that. If they fools, they fools. And it don't matter what color they are. And it don't matter who they doing it to. If I got a problem with somebody, like say for instance with my kids, anybody knew that if I felt like you crossed my kids, I didn't care what color you was, I didn't care what status or stage you stood on. If I felt like you did mine wrong, I'm coming at you. And whatever foolish deeds we do at that time, then it is what it is. But to punish a whole society or to look at a whole race or a whole group of people and label them together, I don't think it's right. Because we label people, we don't even know who they are. We don't even know what they stand for because we never even had a conversation with them. But yet, we label and we judge. So, what does that make us any better than what we're trying to criticize or come up against? It does not. It does not. It has to stop somewhere. All I'm saying is that I respect all people. I respect all their beliefs. And I respect whatever it is that they do. It's not for me to judge. So racism stops with me. And if you want it to stop, it has to stop somewhere. So you have to think about what you're going to do when it hits your door. And that's up for you to decide. So, does it exist? I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. And we don't have to look far from our own living room to find it. Some of us can just walk outside our front door and we can see it. But what you're going to do when it hits your front door, that's for you to decide whether or not it's going to carry on and continue to be an issue here in these United States, or does it stop with you? Thank you for joining me tonight. I hope that you mothers are having a wonderful weekend enjoying your family as I. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night as I'll come and address another audience requested video topic on, I don't know exactly what it is going to be about tomorrow, but I'll have to look and see. But I'll be here tomorrow night for another audience picked topic. Y'all have a good night.
meeting.